What up? Welcome into Offsides with Ethan Petrik. I'm your host, Ethan Petrik. Starting off the show today, I just want to give a quick little warning to the rest of the NHL. Keep your eyes out for my Los Angeles Kings. We took Quinton Byfield, number 2, picked up Elias Anderson with the 60th overall pick. That's the number 7 pick from 2017. Kings get him for the 60th. Keep your eyes out for those Kings coming up. We already have the number 1 prospect pool, and we just keep adding talent. You better watch out. We're going to be a threat in a couple of years. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. We had a wild first week of NHL free agency. And I'm going to just do a little winners and losers. I got 3 of each. And we'll start off with what I feel is the biggest winner from the first week of NHL free agency. Starting off with the Buffalo Sabres. They signed probably the most prolific offensive free agent available this offseason in Taylor Hall. They got him for $8 million for 1 year, $7 million in salary with a $1 million signing bonus. And the reason why I have the Sabres here as a winner is because I think this is a deal that works for both sides. It gives Taylor Hall a chance to prove himself, get right back out on the open market again next year, command possibly a higher salary. However, it also works very well for the Tampa Bay or the Buffalo Sabres. The reason why it works for the Sabres is it's a very low-risk deal. They're taking this guy on for only a single year. It's not like they are a cup contender, but if everything works out right, they would be. It also gives the Buffalo Sabres a chance to show star Jack Eichel that their new GM is all in on winning with this team, and they're going to build around Jack Eichel. There's no disputing after that signing that the Sabres are focused on winning, they're committed to winning, and they're looking to win now. They're not building for the future. Jack Eichel has been displeased with his situation in Buffalo. They have not been the most successful franchise. They have not made the Stanley Cup playoffs since 2011. It's been a while. And certainly for a player of Jack Eichel's caliber, you want to be in the playoffs year in, year out to prove that you are one of the top players in the league. But when nobody sees you, once the regular season ends, they forget how skilled you are, and it's almost like you don't even exist anymore. So when you see guys like Connor McDavid or a Tyler Seguin, even Braden Point, talk about a guy who really improved his stock given the fact that he was able to play in the playoffs. So if you're Jack Eichel, that's something you're sitting at home, you're watching your peers excel at the highest level, and you're not able to do that because the team around you is incapable of getting you there. So you have to understand that Jack Eichel should be and is rightly disgruntled with his situation in Buffalo. But given the Taylor Hall signing, Buffalo is telling him, hey, we're committed to winning. We're going to do everything we can to win with you. We're not looking to move you. We're not building for the future. We're going to get out of this drought that we're in. In addition to signing Taylor Hall, the Buffalo Sabres also went out, signed Cody Eakin and Tobias Reeder, both on very low and average annual value contracts. So all of these are very low risk. They also brought back Brandon Montour, who spent the last year and a half with the team. But if you look at what the Sabres are doing, it's all signaling to Eichel that they are committed to winning now, and they are going to do what it takes to get there. But at the same time, they also have prevented themselves from being hamstrung if there is a better pool of free agents a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. They're not signing these guys to ridiculously long contracts like other teams like to do. Go and just throw 6 years at a guy. So it's especially savvy given that the salary cap is expected to plateau or decrease given the COVID situation. So everything the Sabres have done this year has been very smart, very savvy, and their new GM has been very shrewd. My number 2 winner is Henrik Lundqvist. The King no longer with the New York Rangers. They've begun their rebuild in earnest. They got rid of him. It's basically already over, though, as I mentioned in the last episode, getting Alexis Lafreniere. But getting Henrik Lundqvist to the Capitals, it's a very good deal for the Capitals, but even more so for Henrik Lundqvist. Signs a 1-year, $1.5 million contract. Probably could have commanded more given his resume. But he went to a place in which he will not be relied on every night as they are grooming Ilya Samsonov to be the starting netminder in the capital city. So if you look at what Henrik Lundqvist is doing, he's going as a mentor, somebody who's not going to be relied to play night in, night out, and just take on 30 shots a night. So I really like that deal for both sides, particularly Henrik Lundqvist as he gets older, and I also feel it gives him another chance to make the play. It gives him an immediate chance to make the playoffs, and given that the Capitals did win the Stanley Cup just 2 years ago, I like his chances of potentially getting his first and only Stanley Cup championship. And my final winner from week 1 of free agency was another aging netminder in Mike Smith. Not only did he get the same term as Henrik Lundqvist, he got $500,000 more. He signed for $2 million. This is a guy who has hovered around the 90 save percentage mark. Really not a top-tier netminder at all. A lot of Oilers fans are disappointed by this move, and I'll get more into that in my next segment for the losers. But Mike Smith, talk about maximizing your value. His agent deserves a raise with his ability to get that contract for his client. I don't really believe that this is a player who could have commanded that kind of salary from any other team. There were questions on whether he would even be back this year for the Oilers. So giving that he could rebound from his debacle in the bubble and command $2 million from the Edmonton Oilers, more than Henrik Lundqvist, one of the greatest goalies of all time, is outstanding and really a ode to his agent. Really, you cannot give the agent enough credit for getting him that contract. Moving on to my losers, we're just going to get right into it. The Edmonton Oilers are the biggest loser from the first week of free agency. They needed to move on from Smith. There were plenty of goalies on the market. Corey Crawford, Henrik Lundqvist, Braden Holtby, Jacob Markstrom, all of them on the market, available. Oilers could have easily signed a better goalie, but now they're running it back with the Koskinen and Smith tandem in net. It's not good enough to win a cup. They're going to continue to waste the primes of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl if they are committed to Koskinen and Smith in net. And it's really unfortunate that they made that Smith move and didn't go after a younger and more skilled netminder, because I like the Ennis, Turris, and Barrie moves. All those moves made sense and appear as though they would help you get the Stanley Cup. But when you have Smith or Koskinen in net every night, you're not going to win the Stanley Cup. They need to make another move to get a better goalie, or they need to have somebody in the pipeline that can come up and play now and be elite, because that's what they need in Edmonton. Hockey fans, you hate to see it, but they are wasting the primes of two of the great young stars in the NHL right now. And the Oilers should lose their franchise because of this. It's so disappointing to watch. My number 2 loser is any hockey fans that are waiting for something exciting or big to happen, because it's already done, it's over. There's going to be no late free agent, just absolute surprises. Alex Pietrangelo is the only big name left. Taylor Hall, it was a surprise that he went to Buffalo, but I don't think that was really the name anyone was watching. There were a couple goalies we were looking at, seeing where they would go, and I felt like everything was known before it happened, before it was announced. You look at Henrik Lundqvist. I got an update on my phone about 3 hours before it happened that he's expected to sign with the Capitals. Then he signs with the Capitals. It's like, oh, okay, so it happened. That was the landing spot. So the real only surprise so far has been Taylor Hall to Buffalo. You look at Alex Pietrangelo. He's touring Vegas right now. Hockey social media is already covering that. It's well known. If he signs with Vegas, it won't be a surprise. I think if he doesn't go to Vegas, it will be a little surprising. but it won't be surprising enough that you'll really get that satisfaction of being like, wow, I totally wasn't expecting him to go elsewhere. In addition, a lot of the talent was scooped up very early. I feel like every big name has been signed already. Even the aging stars who are no longer at their peak have been scooped up, and it just seems like a lot of the bubble was spent getting ready for this offseason, and I think a lot of teams had their plan in place, and they just executed it as quickly as possible, didn't leave anything up to chance. If this had been a normal year, could we have seen a more exciting free agency? I think so, but given the salary cap situation because of COVID, I just don't think any teams wanted to mess around. They were just very business about it. They just went and took care of everything. And my last loser is the New York Rangers. They won the draft. They have done the world's fastest rebuild, but it's hard to replace one of probably the greatest goalie in your franchise's history in Henrik Lundqvist with basically no one. But they tried to shore up the position at least for a year with Keith Kincaid, but that's not a replacement for the King. You cannot. I would like to see how New York's brass is selling this to the fan base, because Keith Kincaid is half, maybe even a quarter of the goalie that Henrik Lundqvist has been for that franchise. They get him under $1 million, which is exceptional value, but given what they just left in net, I feel like they should have chased a bigger name to go in net, especially given the talent that they have coming up the pipeline. I feel like this is a team that really could have made a push this year for the playoffs. Get that fan base motivated and excited, sell a lot of tickets, get on a win streak. I just don't think they have the goalie to do it. So I think we're a year out. I think we're a year out on the New York playoff berth. They need to get net figured out. They have a couple exciting prospects. I just don't think they're ready yet. So keep your eye on New York for next year, but not this year. If you're a gambler, stay away from them. But they're probably my biggest loser from week one of free agency. I'd also like to point out this was more of a draft story, but they definitely came out on they came out as a loser in the Elias Anderson situation. They take him 7th overall in 2017. He was expected to be that first key piece in the rebuild, but just things fell apart very quickly with his relationship with New York. They end up moving him for the 60th overall pick to my LA Kings, and it's probably addition by subtraction, but you hate to lose the 7th overall pick who hasn't even really played. He hasn't established himself what he is going to be in his career yet for a spot 53 spots lower in the draft than what you got him at. So unfortunately, New York, they had to make that move. That's probably the most that they could have gotten given the attitude situation with Anderson, but you have to consider them a loser considering it's barely been 3 years since they took him 7th overall. Moving on, last week I talked about how Bleacher Report made probably one of the dumbest power rankings I've ever seen in my life. They specifically said it was about this last season that just ended, just went final, but the Stanley Cup champions weren't number one. The Tampa Bay Lightning were not the number one overall team in the power rankings, even though they had just gone out and won the Stanley Cup and beat the President Trophy winning Boston Bruins in the process. So, without further ado, here is my top 10 NHL power rankings from last year. Number 1, Tampa Bay Lightning. Simple, easy, quick, bang, bang. They made the Stanley Cup Finals. They won the Stanley Cup Finals. They're the best team easily. They had a great run in the bubble. Congratulations. You get what you deserve. Andrei Vasilevsky is probably one of the best young goalies in the NHL. They have a exciting team full of new and old stars. Steven Stamkos, Braden Point. They are a team that is prepared to continue to win for a long time. I really like what they have going on in Tampa Bay. John Cooper is an exceptional coach as well. Number 2, the Dallas Stars. Now, I'm not going to just go with who who made it further in the playoffs. That's not how I'm not just going to go chalk. There's a little room for interpretation. But the top 2 spots, pretty obvious what they need to be. Both teams made it to their conference finals and kind of walked in from there. They didn't really receive a lot of competition in the finals. The Stars didn't put up a lot of competition in the Stanley Cup finals, but I definitely think they were a better team than the New York Islanders, which brings me to number 3, the New York Islanders. Given the fact that Tampa Bay is definitely the number 1 team, the Islanders met them in the finals, or the Eastern Conference Finals, I have to put them at number 3, just because I feel like the Eastern Conference at the top is a little bit better, a little stronger, more talent-rich. Number 4, Philadelphia Flyers, another team that I really like their youth movement, but they also have a couple aging stars that are established and will continue to help them to win. I like Carter Hart in net. He's a really exciting prospect. I can't wait to see how his career progresses. But I definitely feel like those 4 teams are pretty solidly 1 through 4. Number 5, Colorado Avalanche. They're another exciting young team. I just don't think they've proven it yet. They have some question marks in net. They've lost a couple key pieces in free agency. But this is for last season. Definitely some question marks in net. And I don't think that I could have seen them winning the Stanley Cup last year. And given that, I'm going to have to put them at number 5. Number 6, the Boston Bruins. This team really disappointed in the bubble. They definitely lost. They were the top team all season. Super talented roster, packed at every position, and they just flat out choked in the playoffs. I definitely had them in my Stanley Cup final prediction at the start of the bubble, and it was very surprising not to see them make it to the end. So that really knocked them down significantly to number 6. Number 7, Vegas Golden Knights. This is a team that I thought overperformed in the playoffs. I think the record that they had outshined some of their lack of depth. Marc-Andre Fleury is an exceptional goalie, but he is aging, and I think we definitely started to see a little bit of that shine wear off from Marc-Andre Fleury. Number 8 is another young up-and-coming team that I've been on for a while now, the Carolina Hurricanes with Sebastian Aho and Teuvo Teravainen. They also have Svechnikov, which is another young, exciting player. I think the Canes going forward will be in that Stanley Cup conversation. If I thought the Golden Knights overperformed, the Canes definitely overperformed. They weren't even expected to make the playoffs. They wouldn't have made the playoffs in a normal non-bubble year, but they did, and they proved that they deserved to be there. And given that, I'm going to have to say they were my 8th team at the end of this year. Number 9 is the Vancouver Canucks. Another team definitely overperformed once the playoffs started, but when you can perform like that, when the stakes are the highest, when the pressure is on, that certainly says something about your team, your roster, your coaching. So I'm going to have to put them in my top 10. And finally, at number 10 is the Washington Capitals. This is another team much like the Boston Bruins that disappointed in the playoffs, lost a lot of spots in the standings for me. Given their performance, I expected a lot more from the reigning Stanley Cup champions. Not the reigning Stanley Cup champions, but still fresh off of that Stanley Cup championship. I think I referred to them earlier in the show as a Stanley Cup champion. I'm sorry, that was wrong. But they won in 17-18. They still have a lot of those key pieces, or they had a lot of those key pieces this season. So I expected a lot more out of them. And I'm beginning to think that the time is up for the Capitals. That window has closed for them with Alexander Ovechkin. I thought that they were incredibly lucky to win it when they did, but then that raised their expectations, and then they disappointed last year, disappointed this year. So I'm going to put them as my 10th team, just sneaking into the power rankings. But I think you can say without debate that the Tampa Bay Lightning were the top team. That's the whole point in me making this list, was that Bleacher Report disrespected the Stanley Cup champions put them at number 2, even though they had just proven that they were the best team in the league. And I would hope that anyone of sound mind would do the same, considering they just won the championship. I don't understand how you can dispute that, but Bleacher Report thinks that they're hot take artists. They're not. My list significantly better than theirs. That's all I have for today's show. Make sure to catch me again on Takeout Tuesdays tomorrow at 2. Save Saturdays U airing on Friday at 2. And Save Saturdays podcast at 10 a.m. So be sure to catch me on those. But never forget to save Saturdays, guys.